guys, and welcome back to Random Librarians here on YouTube. Today we are going to be talking about this book, The Seine, the River That Made Paris, by Elaine Sciolino. I did have to ask her how to say her name, but it is Elaine Sciolino, said the Italian way, or the Sicilian way, I believe. So let's just dive right in. This is described on both flaps, so give me a second. It is a vibrant, enchanting tour of the Seine from longtime New York Times foreign correspondent and best-selling author Elaine Sciolino. Elaine came to Paris as a young foreign correspondent and was seduced by the river. In the Seine, she tells the story of that river from its source on a remote plateau of Burgundy to the wide estuary where its waters meet the sea and the city's tributaries, islands, ports, and bridges in between. Sciolino explores the Seine through its rich history and lively characters: a barge woman, a riverbank bookseller, a houseboat dweller, a famous cinematographer known for capturing the river's light. She discovers the story of Soquana, the Gallo-Roman healing goddess who gave the Seine its name, and follows the river through Paris, where it determined the city's destiny and now snakes through all aspects of daily life. She patrols with river police, rows with a restorer of antique boats, sips champagne at a vineyard along the river, and even dares to go for a swim. She finds the Seine in art, literature, music, and movies, from Renoir and Les Miserables to Puccini and La La Land. Along the way, she reveals how the river that created Paris has touched her own life. A powerful afterword tells the dramatic story of how water from the depths of the Seine saved Notre Dame from its destruction during a devastating fire in April 2019. A storyteller at heart, with a sumptuous eye for detail, Sciolino braids memoir, travelogue, and history through the Seine's winding route. The Seine offers a love letter to Paris and the most romantic river in the world, and invites readers to explore its magic for themselves. And that is Elaine on the back flap there. So this book currently has a 4.36 star rating on Goodreads based on 22 ratings and 14 reviews, despite only coming out on October 29th. It is currently November 4th while I'm filming this, so that is pretty great, I think, for kind of like the first week on Goodreads. Two reviews that I did think were kind of very on point for this were from Catherine, who rated it 5 stars about a month ago. And she said, "I received this book in ARC, blah, 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 for review. Although it took me quite a while for me to read it at the snail's pace, was not due to disinterest. Quite the contrary, I loved the book from the first chapter. Sciolino's interest in the river and its surroundings, its history, its people, its place in movies, music, art is so thorough that it is most rewarding to take it in by small mouthfuls, so as to prolong the enjoyment and also to digest the information. She starts at the very source of the river, a wide area of marshland fed by many underground springs, until at last the water consolidates into one defined stream that begins its journey towards Paris. It is here that she spends most of her time. There is so much that connects the Seine to Paris in reality and in people's minds. Yet in time, like the river, she moves to Rouen, through the Normandy countryside, and to Honfleur, my favorite of all the towns I visited, and even to Le Havre, literally the harbor. Here, though the Seine touches its western boundary, the focus of its inhabitants is not the river but the sea. I have not been back to the Seine in 30 years. From this book, I can see that much has changed, but even so much is the same. I'm glad those locks were not on the bridges when I was there, and happy they are disappearing." They're talking about the love locks. "If I ever return, I hope I can explore the part of the river before it reaches Paris from its source, and naturally to continue towards the sea through Rouen and Honfleur once more. Until then, I have Sciolino's book to keep me dreaming." And then I also thought that Nathan Schmidt, who rated it 4 stars 7 days ago, had a really good review of it. So he received an advance copy from Goodreads First Reads, and he said it is a romantic masterpiece in that it evokes emotions of wonder and beauty in the tale of the river and the many people whose lives are forever linked to it. It felt like I was actually journeying along the Seine on a personal tour, slowly learning to appreciate its many unique facets. It just took less than a minute of reading to get me hooked, and I read on through the night, unable to put the book down. My one qualm about the book is that it tries to be a travel story and a history book at the same time, and in the process, I think it cuts back on the effectiveness of both. On the travel side, while the author still creates a masterful narrative of the Seine's rich culture and landscape, it feels like I'm only getting bits and pieces of the experience as we keep jumping back to historical elements here and there. In turn, the history of the Seine, which I'd hoped to get coming into the book, was limited and disjointed. At times, the history seemed to be just an afterthought, only introduced for its current relevance to the travel stories that the author was sharing. The history I learned was fascinating, but it only consisted of small snippets that left me still wishing for more, for a comprehensive history of the Seine. Even so, if you try to look at the book as solely a travel piece, the meandering style of the narrative does kind of fit with the themes of the river, for just as the Seine curves this way and that, so does the story, and in that way, the journey itself becomes something to appreciate and enjoy. Even if I felt let down on the history side of things, on the emotional side, I was filled with wonder for the swim through the Seine's joys and tragedies. So I thought those two were great, and I think they both kind of talk a little bit about why the rating is what it is, and I personally would have given it 5 stars. So the only trigger warning that I have for this book is that it will make you want to hop on a plane to Paris immediately, or at least to France, so you can go and see all of the different things that happen in this book. See all of the different places, talk to all of the different people, find your own version of the Seine, and basically I just want to go right now. It will also likely make you want to read Elaine's other books, which is something that I am looking forward to doing shortly. Mainly her ones about Paris, because the other topics sound a little heavy. So I would probably next pick up The Only Street in Paris, Life on the Rue des Martyrs, and then there's also La Séduction, How the French Play the Game of Life. So those are her other books that I think I'm going to check out. As you might have guessed already, I highly recommend this book. I haven't read nonfiction in a minute. I think I might have overdosed on nonfiction a little bit when I was in grad school, so I kind of just avoid it now as a response. But this book makes me want to jump back into the genre. It makes me want to pick up so many nonfiction titles, which is perfect because it is Nonfiction November, and I'm just really excited about it. Elaine mixes personal narrative and historical fact into such an engaging and informative read. Basically, I doubt you'll want to put it down because I didn't, even though it is new and it is hardcover, so that's not normally something I pick up. I love paperbacks, but I didn't want to put this down. I loved reading it. So I was crazy lucky to be able to get an advance copy of this book to read in preparation for an author talk / Q&A with Elaine Sciolino at my library. Of course, this means that I am a wee bit biased in talking about this book because Elaine is absolutely lovely, and she seems just so thrilled about her subject and so willing to just present it to people and talk about it and put her heart and soul into it. But okay, I say a wee bit biased, but honestly, her personality just builds on what is already in this book, in that her passion is so evident, her voice is exactly on par in person and on the page, and she just really wants you to share in her obsession. And personally, I do, and I think you're gonna join her in her obsession with the goddess Sequana, her love of Paris, her admiration of this river that for some reason just makes people fall in love. It's so good. It's so good. Once you've read or even listened to the audiobook, Elaine is the narrator for her book, so that's also kind of an interesting touch. You're just going to fall in love with the Seine, the river that made Paris. I really enjoyed it. I have all of these moments like bookmarked. I can't read all of them, but like I wanted to bookmark everything as I was going through to be able to best interview her and best talk to her in a professional capacity. I really love this book. I think it was very well written. It is very personal. It does feel like a love letter, but it's not a love letter in the way that it feels like you're excluded from it. You get to kind of sign your name at the bottom of the love letter as well, which is great. So obviously I really enjoyed this book. I hope you'll be able to check it out, especially this month, as if you are participating in Nonfiction November. It is available now kind of wherever you can get books. My copy is signed, which is really fun. If you're in Boston, they do have signed copies at Trident Bookseller and Cafe, which is also just a fun place to go and hang out. So I would recommend heading there if you're within the city or even within the state. Make a little road trip, it'll be fun. And that's kind of all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments what you are reading if you are participating in this nonfiction month. And I hope I will see you in another video soon. Until then, happy reading. If my camera doesn't die, I do want to read this beginning part because I think it just really captures her voice super well. So this is chapter 1, Poetry in Motion is the title. And she includes, for each chapter, both images and a quote of someone talking about the Seine, whether that is in music, in a play, in a book, in a letter, like anything, kind of quotations from popular culture that talk about the Seine. So this one says, "I would spend my whole life watching the Seine flow by. It is a poem of Paris," by Blaise Cendrars, in a piece of work titled La Seine. So in the spring of 1978, I was seduced by a river. I had come to Paris from Chicago to be a foreign correspondent for Newsweek magazine. I arrived with no sources, no lovers, no family, no friends, no mission except to start fresh in a city all the world loves. There had been a husband in Chicago, but he'd announced one day that he was leaving. I let him take the BMW, the butcher block table, the full-size mattress, the Wassily armchairs, the walnut roll-top desk, the darkroom equipment, and a set of Wedgwood china. I kept the antique brass bed frame, a carpet, and much of the rest of the furniture. 4 months later, he remarried. I recounted the story of our breakup over and over until it became as smooth and harmless as a stone worn down by the sea. I was 28 years old and free to be my own person in Paris. Does that not make you want to read this book immediately? I was so hooked just from the get-go. Yes, my camera lived.